This conference will now be recorded.
Mr. Oropesa?
Here.
Mr. Johnson?
Here.
Mr. Arnold? Mr. Cortez?
Here.
Mr. Moore?
And if I could get an approval of the agenda.
I'd like to make a motion for approval of the agenda. Do you need to tie in minutes with that?
Approval of the agenda and approval of the minutes.
Yes.
That's customary, I assume.
I'd like to make a motion for approval of the agenda and approval of the minutes from the meeting on November 18th of 2024.
Second,
We got it
that is presented.
as presented.
Thank you.
Okay, and approved by Councilor Juan as presented. Thank you, and we'll start off today with regular items. Resolution 25XX, a resolution to set fees charged by Nancy Lopez Golf Course. Is Seth here with us today? No, he's not. I've looked at it and I'm not seeing.
I might have to start be playing golf again.
Yeah. But I've looked at them and it looks pretty comparable. Louis, do you have any opinion on that or?
No, I like that they included city employees.
I like that as well. And I guess my question is burning. Am I a city employee and do I get that?
Where's that?
Technically, you're on the payroll.
Yeah, technically I'm
Yeah, so
from a
I
former.
guess I need to go back and get a reimbursement because I paid the full fee. No, and it starts around January, but no, I'm all good with it. The more profit they make, the better. But has it like 5%, Louis, or do you know? 10%?
10%.
It looks kind of the same.
Yeah. I already played in 2024, but now I see city employees. I'm gonna have to start playing. I got James also. I got an appointment, James. And I couldn't tell you, Mr. Chairman, if this has been to any other committees or this is the first round.
I can't either.
And then the other thing that I would see on this one is when you look at the action requested, and I know this is a tested item, but just as a matter of protocol, Mr. Chairman, I would say that this item would be recommended to go to finance as the next step.
Okay. I'll probably hear a little more about it in finance as well. Does anybody have any more questions concerning the new fees charged at the golf course?
Mr. Chairman, I think it would have been helpful to see the current fee schedule, to see the contrast between the current.
Absolutely.
That might have been a useful thing for us. And also, I think golf is a good walk spoiled, so just get that on the record. And then
I'm sorry, Chris.
golf's just a good walk spoiled, but just so you know.
Yeah, and you know, that was the first observation I had was, what was it before? And I remember, you know, vaguely, because I am a senior, unfortunately, and I did pay the 400 and something, but I can't remember if it's, what percentage it's gone up or anything. So a contrast would be great. I agree with you on that.
So is golf on our website or is it available?
It has its website,
It has its own website?
its own website, yeah.
Look it up.
Yeah, you can look it up.
It's going to be under Nancy Law.
Well, then, Mr. Chairman, I would suggest that this committee recommend taking it to finance and at finance that they also have the current rates as part of the packet.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I'm kind of concerned because I agree with Councilman Cortez. I don't know if we're going up or down or,
On the rates,
yeah, I mean, I remember, I think we voted on it like two or 3 years, like, in the beginning, but my concern is to even send it to finance, are we going up or going down?
Well, you want me to get them to print, can you bypass this item and I'll go get them to print it out in the,
so the printout you're getting is going to be the past?
Current.
Okay, the current.
You go on to the next item, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Before we go on, Mr. Chair, can I say something? How important is this to be passed at this point in time? Is it urgent or is it something that we can bring back to hear whoever is responsible for it?
Counselor, from the little bit of contrast I looked at, the increases are so minuscule that I think we could wait. It's no hurry at all. So,
Well, I would recommend, or maybe I'll just make a motion that we just table this one for the next, until we can
get more,
hear the presenting of the item. Even though if it was really important, then we could send it to finance and let finance deal with it. But if we want to hear it here,
so
then,
Counselor, do I hear you correctly? You're making a motion then?
yeah,
Okay.
motion to table for
Table it until we get more information on,
next month.
so we can contrast it better. And there's really not a hurry for this anyway, so. Okay, we got a motion.
second.
We have a second. How are you, Counselor Moore? Good.
Bernadette, 208.
Okay, that one will be tabled, so,
We need to vote on it.
thank you. All in favor of tabling this till the next, infrastructure meeting, say aye.
I
All opposed? Aye?
I said no.
You opposed? We have one opposed. And it passes 3-1.
You have a full committee.
any vote.
Aye.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know.
I knew Juan was gonna jack me up today. Just wasn't sure how bad. So moving right along to item number 3. Appeal ratification for a 20-inch water line leak on West Bland, and this is to White Cloud Pipeline for $104,544.27. That's with GRT. How's it going there?
Well, golf didn't show up for their own resolution.
They didn't? It's okay, we've already moved on. It'll be there for next time.
It's been tabled as.
That will.
Okay, so item 3, Chairman and Committee, for ratification of this PO, which we already got going. They should have started the repairs today. And the recommendation should be to pass this ratification on to finance for the review, final review. And this is over there on Bland Street, west of Sycamore, about a block west of Sycamore. Have a 20-inch water line leaking. If you remember, we had this 20-inch water line leaking on US 70 West Second, about a year and a half ago. The same system, same 20-inch. And we got White Cloud, who's on our on-call vendors. And I stand for any question.
It's crappy, but it's, at least it's on there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're waiting on me, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Didn't see the vote.
we have any more questions concerning the White Cloud contract? Anybody?
Can I make a motion?
You can make a motion, man.
I make a motion to consider the PO ratification for PO 22501743 for the repair of a 20-inch water line leak on West Plan to White Cloud Pipeline for the amount of $104,554.27,
Second.
including GRT, sorry.
I have a motion by Counselor Moore and a second by Counselor Arnold.
Did you say we're sending it to finance? Or
To finance,
Yeah, we're required to send to finance.
yes.
then second?
All in favor of sending this to finance?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Hearing none, this is off to finance. We're moving on to number 4, recommendation of the PO for Sandbar Construction in the amount of $96,760.95. That includes the GRT for restriping city roads. Mr. Nahar.
I defer to James.
Mr. Chairman, committee members, we're asking for approval for a PO to Sandbar Construction in the amount of $96,760.95, including GRT for restriping of city roads. Our city street maintenance budget includes $150,000 for citywide restriping of streets. Out of that amount, we've already obligated $50,000 to replace roadway stripe and pavement markings that were obliterated during our pavement maintenance projects. So we're looking to spend the remaining $100,000 on citywide long line street restriping. We obtained a quote using NMDOT statewide price agreement 21-80500-22-16928. Sandbar is currently the lowest bidder on that price agreement, and this work is being scheduled for spring 2025. Stand for questions.
This too would go to finance.
Go to finance as well.
Yes, sir.
My only question is, I noticed we also have some mill and fill, some Nova chips coming up and all that. We're out in front of those knowing we're not going to stripe something. We're getting ready to.
Okay, the mill and fill, we finished last week, the paving.
Uh-huh.
There is no striping on that mill and fill. The Nova chip got canceled. That's what I used to do some more mill and fill over here.
Gotcha. So nothing's on the radar.
Nothing's on the radar.
Perfect.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I have a quick
Yes, Counselor.
just so I understand.
Okay.
So when you guys are doing repaving, the striping is not included in the repaving generally?
Most of the time, the paving is included the striping is included in the paving project.
Yes.
What we did on this year, we were doing residential mill and fill for the flood event. So residential, typically there's no stripe.
Right. What is the desert? And it's just for me for information. So
If you go
sorry,
by-
everyone,
if you go-
I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah, so if you go
So
by.
mill and fill is when you chop the road out, the
Mhm.
existing asphalt, and then you repave in place,
Correct.
like we just saw over here
Correct.
on 8. That's what mill and fill. What do you mean by mill and fill?
Okay, and then the other process that we do is the micro surfacing.
Okay.
And that looks like the little dump truck salt spreader types.
Mhm.
That's micro surfacing. That's another maintenance operation. And typically, before we do any maintenance operation, we go measure the streets we're gonna do, what we're gonna do. And then if they're striping, we take inventory of striping. So if it's a statewide agreement, like for a Nova chip or IPR market surfacing, there is no striping on those agreements. So we do the pavement management, using those statewide agreements. And then we do a citywide, painting and including the work that we did on those.
Because there's just people that are more specialized in,
Yes, and they're
Painting.
cheaper, and
they're cheaper, that's all they do.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And then, now mill and fills, they're usually a little bit more money, and so they're usually a little bit more bigger and stripe on the wider roads, because especially for the collection.
Right.
So we include those stripes. The other thing is, we'll take Hobbs, for example. Hobbs was what they call a TPF, it was 5% city match, 95% state. So anytime we have a good match and a leverage like that, we put everything on that project.
Okay.
So we can get more bang for our money.
Okay. And then which roads require, is it arterial? I mean, you said residential generally doesn't strike.
Correct.
So what level of road, collector arterial do you strike at?
If you go by MEUTCD, it's 6,000 vehicles per day.
ADT.
Huh?
ADT of.
Yeah, ADT, average daily traffic. We have a couple of streets that, we do have a center line just for safety.
But that's the determination on.
That's the
So it's
determination.
based off traffic, not. the-
Off of traffic,
It's not the
safety
road size.
values, that safe streets for all.
Okay.
One of the things to help save lives, and I'll use Garden for instance right now, because it's, if you drive it, you'll see it. Drive Garden at night between Mescalero and Berendo. Now, when you get to Mescalero, driving south, you see that little curve? So we have a double line. Then you drive, when you're getting to Berendo, again, there's a little curve, and we have the double line for the last block. The area in between does not have any striping. And there's more people are parking in the streets. So it's a wider road, but you've lost effective width with the on-street parking. So especially for senior drivers like myself, with that center stripe, then we see the center stripe, everybody gets close to the center stripe, and less chance of hitting a parked vehicle. Plus, it's also for anybody trying to get into a vehicle, especially at night.
Okay.
But no, very good questions, and that's why we do it. Plus the school zone. The school zones are also a special thing under METCC. Down in the school zones, everything's got a flasher except for the middle schools and the high schools, because we focus more on the elementary kids. Thank you.
And schools, usually, council, we get a lot of school crossings that are imperative. I think we may do those in-house now, I think, right?
The school crossings?
Hmm.
No, we still prefer for the stripers to do it. They do a better job. The other thing that the stripers do that we don't do, they drop the glass beads, which make it more reflective.
Retroreflectivity is at its highest.
Yeah, we have a striping machine and we can do that for our parking lots, which we still do. But as far as better quality and better reflectivity, we use the long line contractors like Sandbar, and they just do a much better job.
And I saw 11 cents a linear foot. That's not a bad price.
It's not a bad price. That's the other reason you go with the statewide contract.
Do we have any more questions concerning the striping for the city streets? Could I get a motion to send this to the Finance Committee?
Okay,
So moved.
sure. I'd like to make a motion to recommend a PO approval to Sandbar Construction in the amount of $96,760.95, which includes GRT to be sent to the Finance Committee.
Second.
All in favor of this?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, off to Finance Committee it goes. And we're gonna go to action, regular item, number 5. Recommendation of appeal approval for the New Mexico Gas Company in the amount of $152,778.09. That includes GRT for an extension of natural gas service to the southeast area of the RIAC. That's
Mr. Chairman, committee members, we're asking for PO approval for New Mexico Gas Company in the amount of $152,778.09, including GRT, for an extension of natural gas service to the southeast area of the Roswell Air Center. Just as a reminder and to bring everyone up to speed, we've been working on utility extensions to that southeast area of the Air Center. So we completed design of water extension, and that's was in construction until the flood. We had to pull that contractor off. Wastewater extensions at 90% design. So this action item would bring natural gas to that same area. It's on the screen, and then in your packets, you can see the map of the proposed extension from the New Mexico Gas Company. And this would be paid through a grant 24-I4050, which is that grant we've been working cooperatively with Chaves County. And that grant currently has $363,895.25 unobligated. Stand for questions.
perfect.
Mr. Chair, I'd actually like to ask Mr. Esprit to hear his thoughts on what our plans are for that area with the investments, the fiscal investments we're doing.
Mr. Chairman, Councilor, this is part of a long-range plan to build out that portion of the Air Center to bring in new economic development. The grant, and as you may already be aware, there's also a water line part of that project, but it's all to put together the infrastructure so we can build it out. If we wait to put in this infrastructure later, when we have a customer, then we'll probably be a year behind. So the whole intent is to get it ready so when we can move on it, when we have a potential company, we can move on it quickly, swifter. Anyway, it's time is money for a company.
Improve new hangars.
Yes, so this is something we've been working on for 5 years. This has been through a cooperative agreement, as James said, with the county. And that's through a state funded by through the governor's office and through some capitality money. So it's a worthwhile investment to get us to the point we need to really build our infrastructure out of the Air Center.
Agree.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'll also add that on the water project, we're putting in 2 blank conduits, one for Plateau and one for CenturyLink. So when these 3 projects are done, the water project with the communication conduit, with the extension of the new force main for the sewer and this gas service, all the utilities will be in place.
Wow. So it's going to run parallel with us.
Parallel and 10 feet away.
That's a great idea. You guys knocked it out of the park on that. Perfect. Just have to fish in through there, right?
Yep. They'll have the conduit, and then whoever moves in, they can make the deal with whoever communication company they have, and that the conduit in order to be put in as part of this
You bet.
grant.
There'll be some nice hangars out there with all the amenities that we'd like them to have. So perfect. Any other questions on this?
There you go. Do you want me to make my first one?
There you go.
Okay. All right, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we recommend for PO approval to Mexico Gas Company in the amount of $152,778.09, which includes GRT for an extension of natural gas service to the southeast area of the Roswell Air Center to the February Finance Committee.
Would you like it to go to Finance Committee? It's got a dollar amount tied to it, so
He did?
Yeah.
you did.
That's for February finance.
I'm sorry, but I'm deaf in this one ear and I can't.
I
hear
speak
much.
really quiet.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, that's what I do.
Carry a big stick.
I mumble is the problem.
Yeah, so we had a motion by Counselor Cortez and a second by Counselor Moore. And we're sending it to the Finance Committee. All in favor of this, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, off it goes. So we're gonna move to the non-action items. Lest we forget Park.
Mr. Rogers.
Oh, there it is.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, so the city has a development agreement with the Spring River Corridor Foundation to turn the old Cocoon Park pool area into the Lest We Forget Park and Statuary Garden. The foundation has started with some of the statues. They have one or two on display at the library. And the city received appropriation 24-I-2-877 in the amount of $200,000 for this park. And this funding was planned to go towards phase one, which is up on the screen. So that includes sidewalks, which are shaded in blue, curb and gutter, and then the redoing the existing parking lot shaded in green. And to complicate things, all of the existing paving was damaged by the flood event. And so the park has become part of our FEMA request for public assistance. And we're in the infancy stages of that FEMA request. So our next steps are to get the appropriation budgeted this month, and then to complete the design, working with FEMA and all of our stakeholders to figure out how to best put the pieces of this back in. And for any questions.
Any questions on that? Hearing none, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Let's move on to the good old farmland adjacent to the wastewater treatment plant.
Mr. Chairman, the utility director is not here. I will say that since we started all the discussions, the original owner died. There's already been a change of ownership. And if we keep dragging our feet, we're gonna lose it. And maybe not this council or this city engineer, or maybe not even this city engineer. We need to get it before we paint ourselves into a corner. And I mean, just looking at that, that's for generations to come. You could also have another access off of 19th. So we keep discussing it. This is Chairman Oropesa that said, keep on discussing it. But hopefully in budget, we should at least get a loan or something to get it done so we can maybe reduce the payments. But I mean, exactly across from the farm, from the plant, is the farm that lost the 24-inch sewer line. Okay, so what happens if we have another event and it floods out? I mean, the cheapest thing is that you start adding on the side, but I mean, we can't wait forever and can't, as I've heard, kick the can down the road over and over. So we'll keep discussing it. You're the chairperson now. If you
I think
continue.
it's a great discussion. I think we should keep talking about it. Furthermore, I think, you know, it was getting closer on our radar. Of course, the flood came and it moved away from it, but I couldn't agree with you more. I've talked with the city manager a little bit about it, and you know, I would like to come up with a business plan where not only we purchase it, but we look at leasing the land for farming and agriculture use to maybe even possibly make the payment while we recognize ownership of this property, that it's going to be in dire needs of the city, hopefully later than sooner, but if sooner comes faster than later, you know, we just don't want to have our hands tied.
And I understand that the current owner is amenable to that proposition. So.
Who is the current?
I think it's his son-in-law that got it.
Son-in-law.
Yeah.
Timmy Taylor.
I think so.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Council.
what's the hold?
Well,
Money, but I wanted to,
Is it?
because we have been kicking it.
And I've been a little bit out, kind of just quizzical questions. So the idea is to buy the land
Buy the land,
and the water rights? Or just the land?
just the land,
Just the land.
just the land.
And so that you have space to expand the wastewater treatment plant.
Yeah, because what's happened, this is the version 3.0 of the wastewater plants. Versions 1.0 and 2.0 are buried underground
Okay.
on the same property, so there's no room to really expand anymore because you're gonna hit the other foundations and that kind of stuff.
I got you.
And it just makes sense. Everything's already hydraulically flowing to that location. So we just build it next to the existing one, then we're in good shape. Because the plumbing wouldn't be that much that we would have to extend it. And then everything discharges to the Hondo when we do discharge 2 months a year.
How much of that, like all of that farmland, that total tract?
Well, we're looking for generations to come, and the city of Roswell will be here for a long, long time. So now's the time to do it. Yeah, you could buy a portion of it.
But like that whole block?
Yeah,
Okay.
but from where the plant is to Red Bridge Road,
All the way.
but everything discharges into the Hondo. It's along the Hondo. It just long range planning.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to make a recommendation to Councilman Cortez. If you've not actually visited our waste treatment plant.
Yep.
That is actually, I've been twice because it's that entertaining. It's very clean. No, from a science standpoint, it is actually very, very interesting and it's very well kept. And so, yeah, with as well as they manage it and run it, I can see expansion. Yeah, a very good idea and sooner. Because I think 2 years now we've been talking. So, I mean, I would like it to be happening.
Councilor Moore, go ahead.
Do we have a price, a new, will we
My
have to go a
understanding-
new price?
Lorenzo was supposed to get us a reappraisal on this or something to that effect.
Well, he was talking to the new owner, and the new owner was amiable, and the price really hadn't changed a whole lot.
Okay, and what, do you remember? what it-
750,
750,000.
I think so.
Would it be in our best interest to get the water rights as well, or,
For the city, absolutely.
I mean, would that
Makes
raise,
sense.
that would raise the cost possibly by 25%, or I don't know, that's a subject matter, maybe Councilor Cortez could.
I would say a couple things. One, I think I work for a new owner. So if we get to the point of actually making decisions, I'll likely have to recuse myself. I don't know, something to contemplate when you're talking about water. So I'm just going to step out globally on it. Is of course that water has a place, purpose of use and a point of diversion, and a lot of that area in that part of the Roswell Artesian Basin is very it's high in TDS, and there are limitations on the transferability of the water rights from that area to other places. So, the water rights there may not be of great utility to the city of Roswell system. So they may be, one thing you'd be looking at is one, are they artesian or are they shallow? Generally, the city water rights are artesian. And two, based off their position in the system, they may not be transferable to any sort of city system. Irrigation water rights are pertinent to the land, and they're separate estate from the surface. So they can be severed separately. So you could buy the land from the person, they could continue to irrigate them. And at some point in the future, they could transfer them somewhere else. But they might not have utility to the city and the city water system, if that makes sense. So it's something to consider. And I'm talking just globally in general, the acquisition of, the city does buy farms and then with water rights and then leases them back, right? The Roswell Corporation. So there's a precedent for that.
Yeah, we have leased water rights to Neprino as well.
Yeah. And you have leased water to Neprino. So, I just say that just because you see water of irrigation out there with water rights doesn't necessarily mean that those water rights are, have value in the city system. So it'd be something to look at separately, obviously. But the land obviously is super valuable for expanding
Yes.
wastewater treatment.
And it's, I don't know, I just would like to possibly put something out there, city manager, and maybe, you know, get an idea of, number one, if, okay, if the cost is 750,000, and when is our next, it's not if we're gonna expand out there, I guess it's gonna be when, correct?
Yes, sir.
And when we do, would this put us in a better position, or would it not, from your
So
research?
I think you've heard as a committee from Lorenzo that we are currently at 55% capacity in our wastewater treatment facility. As Lewis has mentioned several times over the last 2 years, we're in the middle of renovations out there with pumps and replacement pumps and more replacement and so on and so forth. And that cost has gone up as well. I know Lewis and the engineering department have been integral in working previously with Lorenzo, now with Andrew Valdez in leading the charge at wastewater treatment. I know that Lewis has looked into the budget, and certainly that's typically where we have the bulk of excess funds are tied to streets. Certainly with the recent disaster, bridge renovations, all of those things, Lewis has now shifted some of that money towards that. What's going to be critical for us in terms of our own money are the insurance claim payouts applied to the FEMA disaster assistance through public assistance application, which completes February 10th. So coming right around the corner. Right now, we're in the middle of classifying all those projects into different buckets, large projects, smaller projects. The smaller projects, my understanding, tend to move quicker through the FEMA reimbursement system. That's going to be critical to freeing up and finding some money. So Lewis has already freed up some of his road funds to push towards that. I don't have an answer on the funding. I've asked Lewis to look at that as well. But as you know, we've got some funding limitations.
Yeah, I think this would qualify for enterprise funding, because this would be for the utility for the wastewater.
Exactly.
I would say, let me bring back the appraisal next month to make sure the water rights are on it. Let me follow up, give Lorenzo a call and see where he left off, who his contact with. But if
Andrew looped into that.
no, Andrew will be looped in.
And with regard to the water rights, just bear in mind, the city has been providing its affluent water to those farms for many decades now. And it's actually very beneficial to the crops that they grew on the site. So,
and it's beneficial to us because when we send the water, treated water to the farms, if there's a hiccup and just minor percentages or 0.1%, we don't have to report it to the EPA. We just take care of it. There's a minor hiccup and we're discharging into the Hondo.
big problem.
Big problem. Then you got to report a finding.
And we haven't dumped any in the Hondo in forever, or Spring River. It dumps into Spring River. It
Well,
goes into
this is the Hondo here. The Spring River's already dumped into. But typically we only discharge into the Hondo
If we have
December and January if we have to.
Otherwise, land application.
and that's all EPA reported, et cetera, et cetera.
So every time we do maintenance, repairs, new construction, anything on the wastewater treatment plant facility, we're having to move equipment, because it's so congested.
Correct.
That it raises our cost of doing business there.
Yeah.
Am I right?
That's correct. We're finishing up the waste dewatering project with the screw presses. We had to take out old concrete to put that.
And it just doesn't, we're shooting ourselves in the foot there.
Well, we got
To
some
some
other,
extent.
Mr. Chair, we've got some other priorities out there as well. As you know, that Super Bowl Sunday previous year,
Yes.
we had a major snowstorm. Some tree limbs fell into some power lines. Power to the facility was cut off for most of that day. And Murphy's Law, our backup generator failed on that same day. It had an electrical panel that's a massive switch. And met with Bruce Courtney out there. I think it was about 6 a.m. in the morning. And he said, Chad, the issue here is there's 2 of these in all of North America. You're not going to have this anytime soon. So we're looking at a double redundancy on the backup generator as well. We just cannot afford to have that plant down for an extended period of time, because what happens next is it begins backing up into the lines. You start blowing manhole covers. Bathtubs fill up. We can't have it. So.
And the Super Bowl's next month.
And the Super Bowl's next week. Yes, sir.
Mr. Leader, I would say we're
Yes.
recently did some contracting work with the city of Artesia, and I know they had to put in a temporary area to get rid of some sludge. So they had land around there. If you look at the city of Artesia wastewater treatment plant, they have a lot of the adjacent land open for things, but there are maintenance things that you can't accomplish without having more room. I mean, that's a fact. So,
well, I think you'll see that when you visit the plant. We've got a couple of those ourselves, but again, if you're more than 8 hours not being able to run pumps, it creates a whole new.
Yeah,
you can't even pump it to the detention pond.
Yeah, I'll make a trip to go check it out. It's really cool. I like the tour sewer plants. I'll add that to my list. Oh, no.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I think Louis, you said this right. We've kicked the can down the road till there is no can to kick anymore. That's where we're going to get to, in my opinion. What I believe needs to happen, Councilor Oropesa has been bringing this up for a long period of time. I believe what wastewater should put in their budget for next year, capital expenditure, to put this in there to see how it fits in their budget for the next year. That's where I believe we should go with this, so that way the whole council can look at this and see whether the funds are going to be there next year. We don't have to borrow money. If you remember when we raised water rates, we put reserve funds in their acquisitions for the future. And there could be, we haven't seen the numbers, but there could be enough funds built up there that we don't have to go for outside funds to purchase this property. But that's where I believe that they should put it in their capital expenditure budget for next year, and then we can take a look at it and get a price.
You're absolutely right.
That's where I believe we're at.
I have another question. So since we're talking about things in the future and you're talking about moving the project forward, is there a way to, I mean, there's a lot that goes into a land acquisition besides funding. I mean, is there a way to, I don't know if the city can do this, can you guys secure long-term, options to purchase, rights of first refusal, things that you have it, and while I may know them, I don't actually know, but when you have a deal that's potential and you have, current generations of farmers that have lived around the community, usually in my experience around farms, it's when you get into third or fourth generations that you start to get outside. So it sounds like Mr. Wagner passed away. This was his farm. He's lived in the community a long time. He obviously was willing to contemplate these ideas. You have the next generation who appears to, based off conversations, be able to like these ideas, right? So is there a way to move forward with, a memorandum and I don't know, legal or finance, where you're getting into long-term, we are going to look to purchase this, we have an agreement, get a deal on the table. I don't know what kind of mechanism could be done.
I think you're absolutely
just a way to like a right, hey, we're going to lease it, we're going to secure it and move forward. You know what I mean?
First option. Yeah.
First option stuff, things where you get it under contract.
Typically, there has to be some valuable consideration. As Councilman Hildebrand mentions, the proper place for this is in the budget. And our issue in trying to balance this year's budget along with some of the changes to the dewatering and continued construction or renovation of the dewatering project, limited that budget in this respect for this year. But I think certainly that's where it belongs, is in the budget and identified for that particular purpose. And then you have some valuable consideration for any number of offers. Yeah.
Yeah, we're halfway through the fiscal year and, starting the plan right now, the long-term plan, and getting this out in front of us, knowing this is what it's going to cost. And then speaking with the owners, letting them know, hey, that dirt coming from that's us, we're coming and we're serious. We want to buy it. Getting all that arranged, I think would be a great idea, and get the ball rolling on this. And, I said it earlier in this conversation, even leasing it until we don't need it. But when we do need it, it'll be there for us. Leasing it.
That's been the whole idea. Buy the property, lease it back to the user.
Sure. And, we can all sleep better at nights, I think. The maintenance of tearing up concrete to come back and report it, to remove, so much infrastructure just to work on a little piece of infrastructure. I can go on for days saying why it's just not good to keep building on top of things.
Spend the never-ending project.
Exactly. And I say we cut our ties with building problems and just start looking at purchasing this, put it in the budget, get it going forward. And that'll be the July 1st budget, possibly?
Yes, sir.
Perfect.
I'll go ahead and bring in the appraisal back next month. I'll get with Mr. Valadez and start helping him come up with the budget price for fiscal year 20.
I like that.
And you should wrap up the dewatering this year.
They're supposed to test it, start up on February 10th.
February 10th, our vendor went back to attempt to start it. So,
Councilor Oropesa.
I just want to say, I am very happy that we got Chris here with us, Councilor.
I haven't even gone there yet.
Because what I heard, it's exactly what we need to do. We need to tie this thing as quickly as possible and make sure that it will be available at the time that we decide to, or if the owner decides to go ahead and move forward.
Agree.
In my personal opinion, this is one of the most important projects that we need to work on.
So wouldn't it have to go to legal to put it to get under contract after you get a total? Wouldn't it have to go to legal first so he could write up something?
Mr. Chair, I think typically you'd want, again, budget associated with it through finance. So you
Find the
can
money
have
first
that
and then write
valuable
the contract.
consideration. Yes, ma'am.
On the right
They
track.
can't go
Yeah,
at the same time. So
No,
you
we
can
make
write
an,
the contract.
when there's an offer on the table, yes, they have to go complete.
And Mr. Chair,
I thought they wrote it up.
I gotta have one more thing. We need to, I don't know who is the outside consultant who's doing the consulting for the wastewater treatment plant, but there are instances where we're gonna have changes to the Water Quality Act. There's a lot of proposed changes to the Water Quality Act in legislation right now. So if some of those changes come through, right, we have emerging contaminants of concern, and they're also talking about reducing the levels of certain constituents or analytes. So one thing you can run into with stuff like this, just tying it all back together, is there may be a change in the regulations as to the discharge that can require additional treatment, which then, if you don't have the space to implement that additional
Requires more
treatment-
infrastructure.
Correct, more infrastructure, more space. So if you don't know how that all those regulatory agencies are like, that can change too. They can come up and just say, now you guys have to treat to this standard, and now you have to update this facility, and now you're adding treatment and you don't have room.
And the
Not only
EPA,
room, but also equipment and
EPA
processes.
has done that, unfunded mandates, which the entity has to eat.
And they just slam it to you and you just have to swallow and move.
Yeah, they give you a year or two to start working on it and show progress. But I call them unfunded mandates. Change the rules and figure it out.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
so I I actually, I thought this was a lot further along than a discussion item because we've heard it so much for a good while. So I agree, it is definitely a priority, and I think where it keeps getting hung up is, yeah, I think a lot of us think that it's making its way to the discussion table when it comes to finance, but I don't know that it is. Well, I know that it isn't because we haven't gotten anywhere. So I think it's absolutely a priority, and am kind of disappointed it's not further along and wasn't considered before. I recognize that we do have fiscal things happening, but Councilman Orpace is right. This is an absolute priority because there's no reason for it to have gone this long. But anyway, I just wanted that to be known because now you have every one of us saying, we want this to be a priority. It should be in the July meeting and it should be negotiated, and each department should be working together to get it accomplished.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Anything else on this, guys? All right, I think we've got a plan of action going forward with that one. And long coming too, by the way. Let's move to item number 8, Community Block Development Grant, CDBG.
Community Block Development Grant. So talking to Dora, there hasn't been any funding yet. So that tells me if there is funding, it's going to be a short time frame for the applications. What engineering is going to do, we're going to start having our public hearings. That this mandate that we have public hearings and see what the public wants. In the past, Roswell's been pretty successful, and then it's only a 10% match. So we're going to get going. As you see on page 29, those are the steps. But the first steps are the public hearings. So we'll probably have a public hearing at the Boys Club, public hearing at the library, and then the final public hearing is council decides which project would have merit. And then you start making the plans and stuff like that. But it's a low income. Hopefully it's the citizens want something that's engineering can handle, not have to farm out. But I know money's tight, but a 10% match is not bad. But whatever we can leverage. The last project that we had was Bland Street. And that's when we took the sidewalk from Garden to Mesa. So anything in those neighborhoods, y'all know is good for the neighborhood.
Anything with a 10% match is good.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
If you got to 10%.
That's usually our problem, right? Any other questions on this one? Okay. Let's go to non-action item number 9. This is just a discussion of naming streets and facilities policy. That's a resolution 15-89.
Yeah, and I think if I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Will's the one that wanted this one at this committee meeting. But here it is. I don't know. This is the resolution we should be using for naming facilities and streets. Streets are normally named when the developer makes a subdivision. This is more like a renaming thing. So there's a resolution. I don't know what Will have in his mind. I haven't heard any rumblings of any name changes of parks or facilities.
Well, I'm not sure council can make the change. It has to be a citizen that requests it. Am I correct?
An application.
There's an application process, yeah. I think this was developed back when they were trying to change the name of Nevada over there in Cielo Grande to Cesar Chavez. And went round and around for a year.
I think this is Steve policy language.
Well, there it is. Try to answer any questions on it.
Sure. Any questions on that?
So the question is, is there?
This is our current policy.
So are we bringing it because we need to go over and check it? Or is just so that we have it?
Councilor Moore, I saw it on here, and I was kind of confused why it was on there. I read through it. I was at a loss. but now I'm understanding Will wanted it on here. I guess it was a topic of discussion for him.
So that we can fix it? So that
No,
we
no,
can
you just
read
wanted to
it?
know what the current policy was.
Oh, just so we can, just for our FYI.
So,
He wants to change.
So it doesn't look like it
Main
needs
Street to
changing.
Will Cabin Avenue.
I believe it.
anyway, that's the current policy. If you didn't know, here it is. That's for naming. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Number 10, discuss fares versus cost of administrative assistant, page 41.
Hey, and a handout. Okay, so our administrative assistant, Scott, has decided that he's going to retire at the end of June. And he suggested, he said, you know, most of my job is taking care of the little tiny bit of money we get. So we decided to do a analysis. How much we get from collecting fares versus, sorry about that, versus what it costs for our administrative assistant. So as you can see, if we went fare free, which the public would love, we would actually save money by not having an administrative assistant. So the swap would be a good thing for the city. We've tried to propose fare free in the past, and we've had resistance because of fares, and I think it was Joe Neb who wanted to have every department. So,
70/30.
yeah, there you go. You guys remember it better than I do. Now, the other duties that the administrative assistant does, besides handling the money, is the grant reimbursement submissions, grant budgeting, the DBE reporting, and some other reporting to the DOT. Those things take up a very small portion of time because they're either once a month or once a year. And so we now have a grant administrator that we didn't used to have in the past who can help us with our grant, some of the grant things that we have to do, like grant reimbursement submissions. The other areas that we would save money is we wouldn't have to have fare boxes in the buses. They cost about $1,100 a piece. We wouldn't have nearly as much printing because we print passes every month and we print schedules and all sorts of printing. Office supplies would go down. We wouldn't have to replace our coin counter every couple of years. We wouldn't have to have deposit bags or deposit books. No one would have to go to the bank every day. We would gain an extra office space where that would mean we would have 3 free offices. And so we could probably house another smaller department if they needed to have this space. And we would not have any monthly credit card machine fees. Now, I understand that when I produce a spreadsheet, not everyone understands exactly what each thing means. So you've had a little bit of a chance to look at it. Is there anybody who has a question about it?
Is this cost of administrative assistant, is that fully burdened? I mean, was that with insurance and benefits and
Yeah.
everything?
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah, it's not just salary, it's the whole.
gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to ask you, sorry, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
So fare box is the money out of the boxes and that's the fare boxes, and the fare contracts are.
So we have some contracts with like New Mexico Military Institute. You're wearing your uniform, you get on the bus for free because the institute pays a certain amount every semester so that their students can ride for free.
Okay.
So we kind of estimate how many rides we will give to a New Mexico Military Institute each semester.
Right.
And that's what.
And then you send an invoice to the other one.
Mhm.
And then
And there's other organizations as well that do that.
and then paratransit
Paratransit is our complimentary service that we are required by law to have. And that is where we pick you up at your house individually, like a taxi service, pick you up at your house and take you to wherever you're going. And it's pre-scheduled 2 weeks, up to 2 weeks in advance.
And then the miscellaneous, just, okay. So that's what those breakdowns are, just estimates of revenue, basically. Those are the actual.
That was actuals from those.
Actual revenues.
Now, when we collect revenue, we only get to keep half of it to go towards our local match. Because they take our operating expenses, subtract our revenue from it before they reimburse us half of what we get. So it kind of counts DOT. It's FTA funding, but it comes through DOT because we're still considered rural. If we go over the 50,000, we become urban, and it's a different animal.
But you still have the paratransit if you went non.
If we go fare free, paratransit would also be fare free because paratransit can only be double what you're normally charging. So double of zero is still zero.
So it would still be free. You still
It would be
have
free
it.
also.
Still would have it. I mean, okay. I just wouldn't want to lose it.
Oh, no, you're not allowed to.
Oh, okay.
What are the costs of right
So the most expensive fare is 75 cents. That's how much adult fees are. Disabled is 35 cents. Student is 50 cents. Veterans are free because we have a contract with another organization that is paying for that.
But once you go free, all those contracts, you'd be universally.
Right. Las Cruces is fare free and so is Albuquerque. Yes.
Yeah, I had a friend, Angie, told me that she knew an expert in DOT that could probably take care of all the fees and, make sure all the fees are reported and everything correctly. Said that guy was smart. She thought he could take care of it with pro bono.
Well, we still have to do tracking. So NMDOT wants, all kinds of tracking. How many age riders do you have? How many student riders do you have? How many of this kind? How many of that kind? So we have these like counters that are like this long in the bus, and they press, when somebody gets on, they kind of have to assume sometimes.
Well, her friend, he works at DOT. He can fabricate those numbers too.
Yeah.
Now, every month you guys get the report that shows what our ridership is, right? And it's always in your packet.
And what is Blaze on there, by the way?
That was the software. So when we had that software for a couple of months, it was horrific.
So we dove down. Blaze went away, we went back up.
Yes.
Okay. I was like, where's Blaze? Because I don't like them.
Yeah, we didn't like them either. So we had it for a year, but we decided to trash it in 2 months. So,
Gotcha.
we just, you spent $20,000 and you'd say, is it worth it? But it wasn't. It was terrible. It could not do what we can do with our own brain. So I am working the 1:30 to 10:30 shift, and I have to dispatch in that time. And you have to make some cognitive decisions, right? When somebody calls and says, I'm over here at Van Buren and Garden, and I need to go over to the federal building. And then you have somebody call and say, I'm at the federal building, and I need to go over here. So you say, well, it's fair to do first come, first serve. However, if you have that where you're going to be crossing paths, or you're going to be dropping, or you're going to pick up, it may change how you route people. So we have a schedule, we're writing it down as people call, and we can visually see that. The software system could not make those decisions because it doesn't have a brain, it's just software. And so we were able to make people pick up people faster, and our average ETA to go pick someone up is like 15 minutes. When it went to up to an hour and a half, people were freaked out.
Mr. Chair, can I ask you a question?
You bet.
So you're proposing, this is something that you're proposing to implement?
This is something I want to know, are you interested in going fare free if we do not rehire an administrative assistant? This is just for discussion. Obviously, it's
But-
not an action item.
I guess I want to get your opinion as to whether this is a better system than what we have right now.
Yeah,
If,
we go to the bank for $80 every day. And it takes, somebody counts it. Well, first of all, we empty all the fare boxes into this big thing. Then we start separating the coins with our coin counter thing. We take out the tokens, we take out all the foreign money, we take out all of the trash, all the things that people throw in there, because if it makes a clink, they put it in. We don't know if it's money or not. A lot of times we get those plugs from the electrical boxes. So we sort all that. I mean, it takes an hour to 2 hours to get the deposit ready. Then somebody else goes in there and verifies that they've counted it correctly. And then someone else takes it to the bank. It's a long process.
you know, it sounds to me that this system is pretty much what we had with the zoo. That we implemented the fares at the zoo, but we were paying out a lot more money than what it was worth.
That's sort of what I'm trying to say, yes. I'm trying to make sure that I don't put my opinion on you, but I give you what the facts that I know are. So if there's other facts that you want to know, then that's when I bring back some more information for you. That's why we're having a discussion.
But to me, as a counselor, and I speak only for myself, I think it is important to know what your opinion is.
Well, my opinion is let's go fare free and everybody and everyone and stop having to go to the window every 5 seconds and give people tokens and passes.
And I think we're in a time where we can see potential waste in government. We need to address it quickly as we can. Go ahead, Mr. Nahar.
Miss Vicky, I have a question. Would you speculate a rise, an increase in ridership?
Yes, and the reason I speculate that is because after the flood, we were fare free for 2 weeks.
Yes.
And that hump that you see, that yellow bump up, was 2 weeks of being fare free.
And I think serving the public is one of our missions.
Well, I think
Places in town that have more of the need than other places. And so we're always moving bus stops to try to accommodate the needs of our people. The other thing that we have a need for is getting people back and forth to the airport, right? And so we do that the best way that we know. There's a great bus stop out there that the Boy Scouts did a airplane. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's kind of known aircraft, super cool and shady and, protect you from the wind, all those things. So we have already, that's part of the Main Street route. So when we're fully staffed, we have 3 routes on Main Street that go up and down all day long from 6 o'clock in the morning until 10 o'clock at night. So we cover most of that with that service. However, if you are at a motel, let's say off of Main Street, and you need to be able to get to the airport, some people are struggling with how can they get that coordinated. And so we're working with Counselor Arnold and the airport so that we can get some signage and some rat cards and all of that out at the airport so people know that they can get a hold of us and we'll come get them.
And that's the 5:45 flight that people are missing. That's what we're kind of focusing on is.
Oh, is the AM flight?
Mhm.
Okay. We have it already on our website that if you call us, you can pre-schedule up to 2 weeks in advance, just like paratransit, for us to get you to the airport. It's just not advertised enough for people to know about it yet.
We need to educate.
Right, it's an education.
Gotcha.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I have a question. So we're having these discussions and just procedural for me because I'm new, as you all know. So as we go from these discussions that are non-action items, how do we take the step to get them to be more fleshed out and become potential action items for a committee or committees and then city council? How do we?
So if you have an interest or you have more questions, maybe you want to see a different type of statistic. I just gave you the things that I could think of right off the top of my head. But if there is more that you want me to research and give you more information, then I can flesh it out some more and then bring it as an action item. And then you can pass it on from this committee onto It's fine, since it has a.
I don't even know if it should go to finance, and if it does, I think you should probably check on it, look at it, make sure it meets all of our, passes all of the smell test, if there's something we're missing here.
I would bring it back to you as an action item first.
As an action item first, okay, and then it would go to
And
finance.
then-
This committee would finance, there's a financial.
Bring it to you as an action item, and then you have 1,700 questions, and you table it, and then I gotta bring it back as another action item. But
Yeah,
I'll just bring it as a discussion.
Mr. Chair, my take on this, perfect example was the zoo, where it was costing us more than 100% of what we were raising at the gate, to have those staff.
Just to have
in
it.
place. And to Becky's point, life becomes a lot easier, more, you're not chasing, a dollar waiting on a dime.
You're right, right.
Yeah. And so her operations become that much easier. My question to her would be, can you live without an administrative assistant and not have to come back 2 months after we've gone fare free?
And need an administrative assistant.
A new administrative assistant or some other title. Just
So,
find something.
I still would really love to have an afternoon supervisor, because I'm filling that role, but that is a different discussion altogether. We would not ask for an administrator.
So I think what the thing to do would be to bring a proposal for action to this committee. And then certainly if the.
To eliminate a FTE and,
Yes. Do it at the same time.
and I don't know, I'm the big fan of that.
Mr. Chair, I'm all in.
Me too.
Everybody's all in,
The
so.
sooner we get started, the sooner we get.
Cannot do that. Look back until July 1st,
Right.
because he's not gonna retire till June.
But the way the committees and everything,
I know.
yeah, so I mean.
So next month, bring an action item.
Action item coming our way, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Peggy. We're gonna move on to, another one of yours, I believe, bus stop signs and bus stop shelters.
Okay, so I don't know if this, so I really need your opinion about this. We have people standing out on the street, literally standing on the street, next to a sign that looks like a no parking sign. I don't know if you can notice, but our bus stop signs and no parking signs are so similar that some people have a lot of trouble finding them, like if they're new to town. And the other thing that happens is they just don't have any sense of Roswell, right? And they're standing out there in the sun or the wind or the whatever. There's no coverage. There's no place to sit a lot of times. So this is something that is going to be looking into the future. It's not a one and done. It's not a hurry up and make it happen. We're going to have to find additional funding. We're going to have to go out for grants, maybe make it an artistic thing. I don't know. But there were some of you around, maybe you were for sure, when we went through the wayfinding project. The wayfinding project, transit was going to be in phase number 2. It never got out of phase number 1. So some of it was signage and some of it was, so I'll just pass this around. I got to have it back because it's the only one I got. But this is what the covers looked like that they designed. And this is what the signage looked like that they designed. In those, actually in those colors. Now, we don't obviously have to go with the wayfinding ideas. So do we want to make a subcommittee that works on this? So that we can figure out, hey, what kind of thing, what do we want representing Roswell? A lot of times our spaces that we have are very small. Sometimes they're larger. So do we want to have multiple types of covers? Just one type of cover? What color do we want them to be? Do we want them to be fancy or not very fancy? There's some things that I really don't want. Like I don't want to have glass because I don't know if you've noticed that glass one out at Mimi that they put in not that many years ago, how awful it looks. And when the glass gets broke out, nobody can afford to put the glass back in. But you can't clean that glass either. Once that water rot gets on there, we just haven't had any success in we've taken all kinds of chemicals out there to try to get it clean, and it just doesn't clean up. So I don't recommend those kind. I really like the expanded metal ones, you know, that looks like mesh, but you can still like see through it. It's because it provides some shade, it provides some wind reduction. There's several companies I've looked at, Tolar, Tolar, and they have some really great covers that are already pre-designed, if you will. The other thing is, Lewis has been kind enough to use some of his sidewalk funding to go ahead and every year do a couple of ADA improvements to each one of my bus stops. So like he picks a couple, depending on what his funding is for the year, and he fixes those up to make them ADA compliant. We cannot do this work unless the stop is ADA compliant. That's why a lot of places just have a sign that's like a stick and a top. So it has to be ADA compliant, and then you can do the other kind of work to it. But as a prime example, for years now, they've been asking me to put some sort of bench and coverage out there at Sidney Gutierrez stop. You know, last year or the year before, Lewis made that stop ADA compliant for me. So now it's ready to put something up. He said if we have things already on the ground, like a prefab thing, they can erect it when they're doing that work. When they're getting it ADA compliant, they can put that up. And so we're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot, not having them do that work because we haven't made any decision thinking to say what we're going to do, what kind of thing we're going to have on hand to do. So do we want a subcommittee? Do we want to make it what do we want to do? Somebody give me some direction.
Councilor Moore, go ahead.
How many?
225 bus stops.
Okay, that's 225. And how many have coverages and, you know?
Like 2 have cover. It's there's probably more than that. I don't know. Maybe 5.
That's all? Okay.
There's probably 10 or 12.
So if you go free, would you think the number of stop places will change? Would you change the number of stops?
So right now, it's changing all the time. For instance, right in front of the UFO Museum this Sunday when I was dispatching, one of our buses, the mirror, came in contact with somebody else's mirror because he was sticking partially out in the street. And where do you go as a bus? You know, if you're in that outside lane and somebody's beside you there's really nowhere for you to go, right? So anyway, her mirror came in contact with his mirror and ours got broken. And that corridor, that downtown corridor is very bad for us, for buses. So what we've decided to do is make a little jog over to Penn, down that street to Alameda, come back to Main and then go. Because right now there's only one stop in that corridor and it's right there at Pioneer Plaza. So Pioneer Plaza has a stop, but there's a stop here at the Federal Building. There's a stop at the church on the other corner. And so we've got 2 more stops and they're just not that far away. So, and you could come across the street to the station. So it's not like really far away. So we'll eliminate the stop at Pioneer Plaza, get off of that Main Street corridor where it is so congested because we're not stopping for passengers there anyway.
Is that it, Councilor? Councilor Arnold.
Thank you. So I want to advocate for this type of progression and this type of communication between departments with what we have coming up with the air races. I think productive planning and setting up for that is imperative because, and I recognize that that's only a couple times out of the year, but I still see growth coming from those events into other events, into other tourism. And so I love the idea that you're bringing it. You don't have to worry about whether I support it because I kind of like the Main Street signs, knowing just creating a cohesive, well thought out look. I like the mesh with you know, the R on the side of it, something very streamlined, something very thought, also connecting to when you're, you know, doing roads or however, I totally.
Well, and
support that.
lights. I don't know if you've ever been up and down Main Street in the dark,
Yeah.
but it's easy to miss somebody that's at a bus stop in the dark. Because none of our bus stops have lights. And so you could be standing there and we may or may not see you. So sometimes we do miss people. We only stop at a bus stop when someone is there. We don't stop at every bus stop. We
Well,
never get up and down Main
And
Street.
if I can do anything, you want to put me on a committee and get my opinion, I'll throw that out there all day long, you know that. So, yeah,
Mr. Chair,
I'll help if I can.
if I can make a suggestion, I think this is the committee. This is the infrastructure committee. So I think it'd be great to bring back some information for the infrastructure committee to make some decisions around.
What do you want first?
So I think cost and colors and different types.
Solar has every color under the sun. I mean, literally.
I think
Doesn't transportation have their own color?
Go ahead, Chris.
I think I'd like to start with, first of all, because you know, you do this every day, you know the ins and outs of your work. I don't. I'd like to see a map, sorry, GIS. I see a map where all the
We have one on the
stops are.
website. I mean, I could love to bring you a map, but.
I would love to see that.
It shows you every stop.
Yeah, like, and I'd like to know, but I'd like a little more detail, like, so, you know, and this is a GIS thing, right? So you have 215 stops and you're saying that some of them are moving, right? So which ones are static and which ones are moving? You could just color code them differently. Which ones are already ADA compliant? Because if you're shifting them still, we don't want to invest in ADA and then all that stuff.
Correct.
And then obviously, it seems to me like, so I'd just like to know that. I'd love to see a map of here's all the stops, here's the stops that are good, here's the stops that are, they're flexing them back and forth a little bit. I do agree with Councilor Arnold. Obviously, we have a lot of big infrastructure events coming, and we're probably going to see an uptick in public transit, especially if we do go fare free, we're going to see an uptick. Obviously, we need some sort of signage that everywhere is going to have a sign. That's kind of universal. It sounds like some stops are going to be more prominent than others, and then like so anyway, I guess I'd like to see a map, stops that are settled and already have things on them, stops that are ADA, stops that have to be brought to ADA, because it sounds like we have to bring it to ADA before we can put a structure on it. We don't. Okay.
Only if it's new construction.
Only if it's new construction. And then that kind of stuff, that kind of information would be really useful for us to understand.
He does all
Well,
that for me, but I don't know the ins and outs of the ADA compliance.
So essentially an inventory of the current stop.
Yes,
current stops, and then they're like kind of their statuses, like this one is, we're flexing this one's permanent, this is good, we know this stop isn't going to change, this is somewhere we want to invest.
Well, like all the motels
Right.
are virtual stops.
Virtual
Because
stops.
that way, for sure, we can get people picked up at a motel and take them to the airport, right? So we call it a virtual.
A virtual stop is kind of contrary to the idea of that we have to have really good signage
Yes.
or a structure, you know what I mean?
If a hotel wanted to invest in a nice stop, they
Right.
could they could put the cover on, you know, but we would have it ours, not just anything they chose, but something that we
Right.
had chosen,
That's awesome.
you know, but then we could actually go to the motel and say, hey, you know,
So I think if you brought some examples to this committee and then you could narrow it down, and like you said, come up with.
but what examples? I mean, so I brought examples. But I don't know, what I don't know is how they have thousands of them.
I think we already identified some.
Do we want to have something that's, we want designed specifically for Roswell? Or do we want to use something generic that other towns are using?
I think you've hit, those are like design criteria, and I think you've hit some of the keys. Has to be easy to maintain, right? And obviously the most important thing. So what are the characteristics of a structure you want? First thing is we got to know that there's a stop there.
Right.
That's a sign, right? What does the sign look like?
Right.
Second thing, if there's an improvement at a stop, where so some sort of structure or a seat, like what are the characteristics we want? Because I don't think we want to have to keep repairing the replacement.
Benches that
Correct.
have the wood, that we have to keep going and putting new wood
Right.
on. And
You're
new-
saying easy to maintain.
you know, and we have to keep painting them and blah, 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 and people lay on them. So these days now, they do benches with either rests in between, so people can't lay down on them and sleep, because that becomes a problem for the rest of the public who are trying to use your sidewalks. Some people are afraid of people who are sleeping on a bench. I mean, that's true. It's true.
Well, it sounds like before we go to a specific design, so we need some examples. It sounds like defining the criteria of what we want. So it's more, we want shade, we want easy to maintain, do we want a place to seat or not?
Lights, I mean.
Do we want light, do we not? And then that should drive the design, right? You set the design criteria,
right,
and then we find the thing that fits the design instead of going in reverse. So sometimes we need ideas.
Yes, well, so that's kind of where I was going. I've set criteria.
Right.
I have, this particular company has lots of different designs. They have from very small footprint to very, bigger footprint. They come in every color under the sun. And it's powder coat, so it's, resistant to weathering.
But I think.
Are we going to want to have signage though that says, this is the city of Roswell, or is it just going to be plain Jane? You know what I mean? So these are the things. You want me to just maybe bring back my criteria for?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Okay.
If we could agree, if the committee can help you agree.
So next month, I'll bring an action item to vote for criteria.
Yeah, that's
Is
good.
that good?
That's great.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sure.
and a
And
map.
with color is, I don't know if it's, sorry, I don't know if color is as important, but doesn't transportation already have a color like everybody else has their color?
Well, we have an R.
But you don't have a color like the libraries.
Have you seen our buses? They're every color under the sun.
No, but I mean, each, like,
Yeah,
there's
are
each,
different colors.
like, their field,
Yeah, our R is just the standard
but it has
alien green.
not colored.
But I mean, they've got every color. So we could do it in any color.
Yeah.
And depending on the neighborhood. So my idea was, rather than make it some giant stick out thing, you could go with blending it into the neighborhood that it was in. If all the buildings in that neighborhood are gray, you could make it a gray. If the buildings are brown, you could do it in some sort of brown. But make it a blend. Or maybe you want it to be, these are the questions though that I have an opinion, but you guys are the ones who make the decision.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, go ahead.
Our drivers are out there every day. Our drivers, for the sake of brevity, because this could take a year just picking out certain things for the, it might be beneficial if our drivers and the people that are out there maybe present like 5 or 6 ideas that they see, because we want something they're going to see too. And I think it needs to stand out.
That's where the best ideas will come from.
I believe our people can actually tell us, so, because you put us on it and, 5 and with a whole leather, it'll take forever. So let our people pick it, a couple ideas, 5 or 6 ideas, and then we can select from that, because they're the ones that are out there.
Okay, so is that what you want next? Is that like, this is what we think we should do? Is that what you want for next month?
Fine, like maybe give us 4 or 5 options and.
The other thing, Becky, from experience, with your alternatives have a cost, because ultimately it comes down to the dollar bill.
It does.
A cost related to each one of them.
Okay, I could do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Becky. But we also have Roswell Transit, number 12.
Do you have any questions?
No, you answered mine on the Blaze thing. I mean, and also just for everybody's knowledge here, if you look at the big yellow spike right there, that's when we went fare free. So we can see our ridership go up by 1,000. Unbelievable.
Which could be correlated with people out around town a little more too. Partially, right? I'm sure that last year.
But that did attribute to some, but a lot less than we thought it would.
Okay.
Yeah, but you're right. There is a correlation there. Yeah. Okay, any questions with transit? Anybody? Going once, going twice? We're going to move on to number 13, department report on fleet maintenance. You get Becky too?
Yes.
All right, come back.
Maintenance.
Any questions about fleet maintenance?
Portion there.
You know, our fleet is getting older. We lost 20 vehicles in the flood. The police vehicles have been replaced. The insurance company went to one of the dealerships in Albuquerque and stole some of the New Mexico State Police vehicles that had been set aside. And they sent them to Oklahoma, got them outfitted, and so now we're starting to drive some of them. They're all Ford Explorers. There was one pick, but the rest of them are Ford Explorers, which we like way better than the Dodge.
So how many of the 20 have been replaced?
Just those, and there were 8 police vehicles.
So we're still, well, yeah.
5 of them were fire, so I don't know the status of them yet. And the rest of them are other departments like community enhancement, or I'm sorry, code enforcement lost one, IT lost one, parks lost one, facility maintenance lost one.
What did it look like for replacement of those?
Well, those departments have to make that decision, right, for themselves. So far, nobody's replaced any because they obviously didn't have the budget.
That's the main thing, Councilor, that we haven't been able to buy vehicles for departments on a regular basis for 7 years.
For years. But any of it wouldn't come through FEMA money though? Both hard replacement.
Nobody has let me know that we're qualified for anything.
We're reporting all the equipment losses as part of our.
So some of it could be replaced through FEMA.
Some of the thing with FEMA, it's a reimbursable.
Oh, you'd have to buy the car.
So you gotta have the money up front. That's I killed whatever project I could, repaired whatever I could. Just take care of yourself and go on your business.
So even though the used market is quite high, I don't have a problem with buying used if it's something that's been maintained. And that is why we have gone to the state police and bought certain vehicles for our purposes. They do have vehicles that were used in the governor's detail and that sort of thing that they replace. But they went up to, I think, 175,000 miles before they replaced theirs. And so.
Very high speed use.
Yeah.
Maybe we should make.
The governor's wants a real high speed.
Let's see, any more questions on fleet maintenance, anybody? Let's go to number 14 then, department.
Mr. Chairman, as staff liaison and senior staff here, items 14 through 20 to 34, nobody else here but me. I would say reports are as presented. I'll try to answer any questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
I like that.
And we do have
the fuel efficiency on page 56. I noticed we got some good gas mileage on vehicle 263. It's getting 346 miles to the gallon. I like that one. And unit 309. Oh, he's got an explanation. I don't even know it. I don't even want to. But
I do believe we have somebody here for public participation.
Okay. No questions on items 14 through 34, anybody?
Oh, quick, are they still picking up the big garbage and stuff around town? People pulling out of their houses and fixing it?
They're still dumping it out there and just because we have to. Is it part of the FEMA stuff that we're doing? I don't know if he's still tracking it, but the FEMA stuff is officially closed.
Yeah.
But we're still keeping our city clean. The reason I can answer that because I've heard Abraham answer it.
Absolutely, yeah. But we do have a special guest here today, Susan. Thank you, Susan, for listening to all of our non-action, regular items, and so on and so forth in our discussion. But thank you for patiently waiting. And the floor is yours, ma'am.
And
I'm gonna stand up just so I can see people, if you don't mind.
Oh, I'm sorry, Susan, can you say your name
Yes,
and your address, please?
my name is Susan Noyes, and I live at 3202 North Washington Avenue. And I've been here for 2.5 years, and I love being in Roswell. I'm also on the board of directors for the Keep Roswell Beautiful, and trying to do things to help keep the city looking good. Yeah. And one of the things that I've been working at recently is recycling. And as you know, you probably are the ones who approved it, that they are now recycling cardboard at the landfill, but they also have plastic and cans and things like that they do at the, well, I've started because I'm really very strong with recycling. I joined Planet Fitness, and I go every day that I go through and I take the plastic bottles out of their trash cans. And I just took it out to the landfill before I came here. And I had like a 90-gallon bag of plastic that I recycle. And I do that every week. Now, the last time I was there last week, it was a mess. They had these big 90-gallon containers that they were putting things in, and was so overflowing that the wind was blowing all the cans and all the plastic bottles into the field, and it was a mess. It was a mess. Today I went. I won't do that. I'll just. Sorry. I went. I don't have enough for everybody to have one, but you can have one for God. There you go. And they had, and I'm not gonna give you all of them, they had 4 of them. These roll ends, and they are so clean, and if you look at the ground around them, they went in and they completely cleaned it. And this is, I talked to,
Debbie.
Abraham, and I went to him last week and said, geez, is there any way we can make it easier to recycle? And he said, yes. And this is what he did in 1 week. He cleaned up that total mess and put these things in. So you're welcome to take any of these or look at them just to see what it is. But I wanted to let you know that he really did a great job with you guys. He did a great job for it. Yeah. And he also is going to be working with TJ about maybe getting a place there and getting volunteers like me to go and help with the recycling, because they don't have enough people. And they said that the city council doesn't like to raise how much money they have for people. So that's his thing to work with. But I'm even thinking about seeing if I can get people who will volunteer to go out there and help with the recycling. Just help with getting things together, just to help them. Because there are a lot of people in town who are really dedicated to recycling. And I'm going to try and find them and get us to really get this city. So this is one of the ways that we can make this city a better city. Because instead people, a lot of it has to do with people's habits. They drink their Coke, they out the window. They finish a bag of chips and they go, and maybe it'll go into the trash and maybe it won't. And they don't go get it. And maybe it's something that we can get people together to be able to do that. Now, I told him I was going to do 2 different things. One of them was the great thing that he did. But then he also had a couple of issues. Like this is to the in the alleyway behind Ferris Coffee. And it was a mess, and it hadn't been emptied, obviously, for a long time. And he said they were already sending someone out today, so it should be clear by now, but it was really a mess. So I brought it to his attention, not trying to, and this is in the mall, and these are two of the bins that are used for recycling stuff. And they hadn't gone to pick that up, but he said that's up to the store manager. So we get some education to do for people, but I really wanted, that's why I came so I could let you guys know he did a great job.
That is very good to hear. Good stuff.
Yeah. You need to give him a raise.
Not gonna happen. Can we label? Can they be?
Yeah.
Like those green, they're not labeled recycling.
I think those are for the,
No, they are, those are actually for the store ownership.
But so they know they're recycled.
Yes, they know they're recycled, but the problem is because it's not closed off, they're trying to get them to close it off so that
Other people are putting trash in there.
It's just their people, yeah. So, there are things that he's working on, there are things that you can work on, there are things that I can work on. But I'm
Abraham, if you call him,
he's amazing.
he's a diamond in the rough out there.
Yeah.
And he will jump through hoops, whatever it takes to get the job done. And
I absolutely.
he's done the city, he's great, he's done us a great job.
Yeah. When I drove up to that and I saw that, I go, oh my gosh, in 1 week, look what he did. Yeah, I was just thoroughly impressed. So anyway, you're welcome to have these pictures if you don't, I don't know, keep them in and stuff, but this one, he said was taken care of. So,
Thank you so much, Susan. That was the breath of fresh air to get to hear something good. Thank you very much. And thanks for waiting us out. And you had some very good, valuable words. Before I adjourn the meeting, guys, I want to welcome our new guy here, Chris Cortez. He's going to bring us a lot of value. I've worked with him for many years, and he's with Atkins Engineering, and I think we need to pass an ordinance where we can get him to bring his puppy in here with him. He goes everywhere with him. So, I don't think he'll argue that, but
He's a pretty good dog.
he's a good dog.
He was very upset that I left the office without him.
Yeah,
He sits at the door and waits till you come back.
I bet he does. I bet he does. But Chris will bring us a lot of value. And Chris, thank you for coming aboard. Thank you for the value that you're going to bring us. I mean, I'm excited. I really am.
There's no rules that say he couldn't bring his dog, though.
I don't know of any
Because I
rules.
used to bring mine. And she was, mine's like with that. I used to
There you
bring
go,
mine.
Chris. I'm trying to open the door.
I think Mayor Jennings used to bring his, right?
There you
I
go.
don't think there's a rule. I don't think there's any
Original
rule.
Mayor Jennings.
I don't think there's a rule.
So, any questions with anybody? Anybody online have any questions?
You mean Rita don't have nothing to say?
Okay, well, this meeting is officially adjourned. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
3:40.
There.